Warning: the content provided in this episode may be viewed as offensive to some. If you or anyone you know is offended by this episode or the bulk of this podcast, we encourage you to go to your nearest religious institution or windowless room where the ills of the world cannot harm your piteously fragile way of thinking. You have been warned. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of I Am Heathen, and So Can You. I am your host, occasional Havamal owner, Odin fetishist, Mjolnir enjoyer, and definitely still not a fucking Viking, Einar. Today will be another iteration of heathenry off the cuff, where I don't have a script. Not because I'm too lazy to write one, but because I want to keep practicing just talking on the mic and just letting it all go. Little life update. As you all know, I am a chef, have been for 14 years at this point, and I am absolutely delighted to share the fact that I have been signed to a publisher. Three Little Sisters Publishing has signed me, and I will be publishing a cookbook through them. I have always said that I wanted to do very much like my idol Anthony Bourdain and end my career in food media, and I think I am very delighted to report that I have found my in. Today is going to be a little bit more of a goofier episode, I think, because I have found some goofy shit on social media, and I think it's really important that I talk about it because of who the person is and how this person impacts pagan spaces on the whole. Now, if you've listened to Mayhem, Immortal, bands like Gorgoroth, anything from the Norwegian or Scandinavian black metal scene, there is a pretty damn good chance the name Bursum and Varg Vikernes have crossed your ears at least once in your life. And if you don't know who Varg Vikernes is, let me first start by saying congratulations. I hope the rock you've been living under has palatial space, at least 3 bathrooms, and the Wi-Fi is better than what I'm working with right now. If you don't know who Varg Vikernes is, I highly recommend checking out the films Lords of Chaos and the documentary Until the Light Takes Us. I tend to lean more towards Until the Light Takes Us, as Lords of Chaos is a little bit fictionalized. It's still true to what occurred, but Until the Light Takes Us is a hell of a lot more accurate to the actual story. Varg Vikernes was born in Bergen, Norway, with the name Christian Larsen Vikernes, and he was born to two heavily avowed racist parents, and he spent time living in Baghdad, Iraq, because his father, of all fucking things, was a software engineer for Saddam Hussein. His dad basically developed software to manipulate the Iraqi economy. Varg, at a very young age, developed a love for Nazis because, and I quote, they had better weapons, they had better uniforms, and they killed Americans. This put off Varg's parents because seeing their son goose stepping in the backyard and firing off a few Ziegheils here and there reminded them of the Quisling collaborator government in Norway during World War II. You know, you gotta be pretty fucked up if your parents are racist fuckwits and they walk out and see you decked out to the nines in a do-it-yourself SS uniform, and your parents go, "Son, we need to scale it back a bit. We need to turn around and maybe not enjoy Nazis. Varg also, at a very young age, began to develop a proto school shooter outlook on the world. He found his entry into music with the band Old Funeral, which I still think's one of the funniest band names ever. He left Old Funeral and he was quoted with saying, "All I wanted to do was talk about my dynamite, my sawed off shotgun, and all they wanted to do was eat McDonald's." And very much like a lot of the bands of the era, Varg was very, very deeply obsessed with J.R.R. Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. Bands like Amon Amarth, Cirith Ungol, Cirith Gorgor, Gorgoroth. And Bursum is the word in the black speech of Mordor for darkness. And Varg gave himself a second stage name, Count Grishnak, for the orc commander of the Tower of Barad-dûr. Now, if there are any nerd or geek haters out there, given what I'm about to go into, if y'all want to find him and give him a wedgie so hard his father dies, all the power to you. Varg frankly deserves every degree of scorn and derision people can throw at him. After that, Varg hooked up with the band Mayhem. Like I said, I'm not going to go into too many details here, but watch until the light takes us for a more accurate picture. The church burnings happened. Varg was among the group that burned Fantoft Stave Church, which was a 900-year-old artifact at the time of its burning, and he was so up his own ass about his message, about what he believed, that he took a picture of the church in flames and made it the cover of the Burzum album Aske, or Ashes if you don't understand Norwegian. Naturally, being a musician in Mayhem, Varg met the guitarist Oystein Arseth, aka Euronymous. One thing led to another. Euronymous is dead. Varg is still alive. Varg is heavily insistent on the fact that he murdered Varg in self-defense. That Varg murdered Euronymous in self-defense. I mean, I personally don't view 23 stab wounds as self-defense, but I'm not one to judge. Varg proceeded to serve 15 years of his 20-year sentence. Now, I won't go into Norwegian prison and how they rehabilitate their criminals, because obviously Varg has not been rehabilitated. While he was in prison, he abandoned his German socialist adherences, allegedly, and began to fall into Norse paganism, which, cool, all the power to you, bud. But he developed a school of Norse paganism referred to as Odalism. And for those of you definitely playing the home game, Odal being one of the runes created by Guido von List, the Othala with the little feet. Either way, Odalism was a tribalist, anti-state, anarchist, far-right, anti-capitalist. His school of thought was attributed to so many descriptors. Daenerys Targaryen was like, bro, I thought having too many names was my job. But I digress. Odalism basically pushed the belief that Norse paganism, A, was an ethno-religion, very much like the AFA and other racist asshats who dwell within our faith, but made it unique and put a little fun bow over the top because they believed that modern technology was not a help, it was a hindrance to the world, that if there were to be any technology, only agricultural technology should exist, that we should all basically return to the Dark Ages where wearing too much wool could fucking kill you. Varg also happened to have married a woman by the name of Marie Cachet. Marie Cachet is a 37-year-old French woman who is so far right that the far right people are asking her for lessons. Sorry, I know that was a shitty joke. I just don't have a joke for her. If I were to compare her to any modern authors in the pagan space today, it would be Galina Kraskova, another far right person who genuinely believes that Norse paganism needs to be for the awakened European peoples, and that another idiotic belief that Odin is Hitler, is reincarnated into Hitler. Bunch of stupid shit. However, this brings up a very good point for the new pagans out there on their path, and for the people who have never heard of Varg Vikernes and Marie Cachet. Norse paganism has not now, nor has it ever fucking been, an ethno-religion. Norse paganism is not a closed fucking practice. There is no such thing as a heathen blood quantum where the more Scandinavian you are, the more the gods are willing to interact with you. It is complete bullshit and racist, hateful ass propaganda meant to turn the lowest common denominator of our faith into giving them a message to follow. Now, do I think any of this bullshit is valid? Absolutely the fuck not. I know many a pagan from many a walk of life who, when they hear of these things, they think Varg is an absolute crazy person. They think Marie Cachet is an absolute crazy person. And the fact of the matter is, Varg, unlike other hate figureheads, Matthew Flavel of the AFA, among other people, Varg is consistently on social media. Many metalheads have covered Varg's crimes, have covered Burzum tracks. Many people put Varg on a pedestal. And the problem with Varg nowadays specifically, he knows his fame. He knows his notoriety. He knows how good he is as a marketer. And he has, hold on a moment, I will pull this shit up on TikTok right fucking now.
Are you gonna let
Varg Vikernes has
How did I recall?
216,000 followers on TikTok. He follows 37. And all 37 of those accounts are all far-right European neo-Nazis. So he never abandoned that way of life. Where in the early days of black metal, where Fenris of Darkthrone murdered Magna Andresen, a local Norwegian gay man, because he was gay, only two people in that entire scene were truly about that life. Fenris is nowhere to be seen. I haven't heard neither hide nor hair of him in quite a long time. But Varg is right there on TikTok. Varg was on YouTube with the YouTube channel Thulian Perspectives. That channel got taken down in 2019. Truly the gods work in mysterious ways. Now, that's another good one. Good dog whistle lesson, because this pops up whenever Varg pops up. Thule, Ultima Thule. Now, if you've looked at the book Beyond the North Wind by Christopher McIntosh, it's an interesting book. However, that rhetoric was culled from a Nazi called Julius Evola, and Julius Evola believed that Ultima Thule, or Thule, not like the Thule Society, was pretty much the home away from home for the awakened European peoples. It's a bunch of bullshit. It is good to know these things. It is good to understand these things, because in the modern heathen spaces, If someone is branded as hateful, it's just they're a hateful fuck. My question is, why are they a hateful fuck? And 9 times out of 10, I've never gotten the answers. There is a small semblance of, if someone is a racist, if someone has said some terrible things, immediately walk away, but understand why they hate that way, because it increases your knowledge. Your wisdom as a pagan grows because you understand why and how a person hates. I'm not saying adopt their rhetoric, I'm saying understand their rhetoric and know when you see it, know to turn and walk in the other direction. The fact of the matter is, Varg is a marketer. Varg is very good as a marketer, and if there are actual pagans who are following him and giving him the time of day, he is spinning hateful rhetoric. He is spinning Nazi influenced paganism, not the paganism you would find from organizations that want to steer themselves away from racism and hatred. Now, if you know me, you'd know I have been a chef now for 14 years. I have worked in all manner of kitchens. My throat is still a little fucked up, but here we are. I've worked in all manner of kitchens, and I have a myriad of ridiculous stories to tell, from entitled Karens who can't read a menu to dumbfounded, slack jawed customers who genuinely believe that making a well done steak with just a little bit of pink is physically possible. There are very seldom any instances when customers open their mouths to me and I'm left with a question that makes me think for weeks at a time. Now, about 3 or 4 months ago, I'm closing my kitchen, and out of nowhere, I hear, "Do you have any vegan options?" I turn around and look at the two people who were addressing me, and what I can say is they looked like something out of a Manson family Andy Warhol acid trip. The very definition of flower children, the very definition of hippies. If I were to say, hey, yo, 1960 cult, they want their clothes back, the joke would have hit like a nuclear bomb. I turned around and I had a chat with these people, and they were cool as hell for a bunch of weird hippies out of California. And we had this long discussion, and they saw the Mjolnir around my neck, and they asked what it was. And the woman turned around, and for the very first time, IRL, I heard, that's the Mjolnir? Like Thor? Now, this is the one thing. I've heard all kinds of misconceptions about the faith, and the only one that makes me laugh that hard is when people attribute the Mjolnir to Chris Hemsworth's Thor. Like, there are actually Norse pagans out there who don't worship Thor. We worship Chris Hemsworth. Chris, if you ever listen to this in the highly unlikely event, you're a dreamy motherfucker, but you ain't worth religious reverence, my guy. I laughed it off and I explained what it is we do, what it is we believe, how we believe, in a little bit of an insight into my own personal practice. Now, I went about my day. They bowled their game, they had their fun. I closed my kitchen and I'm waiting on my cab. They come out. We start talking again. And the guy looks at me with just so very satisfied and he goes, "Thank you for that talk about paganism, man. What you believe just feels so holistic." Under any normal circumstances, I would have laughed my ass off hearing that. But knowing what this faith has done for me, how I've changed because of this faith, I was like, dude, you're right on the money. And When their Uber finally pulled up, he said to me, "Dude, your energy is like so good, man. And we're gonna bring this back to LA. People need to know about Norse paganism. This was so cool to meet you, man." And they got in their cab and they left. And it got me thinking, if Norse paganism took root in a city of trends like LA that go through trends like I go through tacos, would it be a good thing or a bad thing? Now, I genuinely believe that given the origins of heathenry in America, we have a lot of growing pains to do, a lot of growing to do, and those growing pains are still felt to this day. We've been doing growing since 1964. If it took root in LA and blew up, and celebrities from Renee Zellweger to Esapatha Mackerson, weird ass range of celebrities, but bear with me. If they all wore Mjolnirs around their neck and were talking about the gods, and Tom Cruise jumped on Oprah's couch praising Odin instead of loving Katie Holmes, what would that do for the faith? Now, if you've been a pagan for 10 years at least, you would know that with the God of War franchise entering into Norse mythology and TV shows like Vikings, video games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it led to an increase in curiosity about Norse mythology, and some people chose to walk this path. Whether it was for the long term or not, more people chose to walk this path. And I personally think that if this faith took off in a city like LA, it would not be a boon, it would be a hindrance. Because so many people would want to do this that it would take on a life of its own, and the growth that we've already achieved would be stymied because a bunch of really trendy people with money decided to practice the faith, which there is nothing wrong with that. But I think if Norse paganism, heathenry, Asatru, what have you, is to grow in this country, the growth needs to be organic. Your local kindreds, your larger orgs like the Troth, whether you want to join one or the other, that growth needs to be slow, tailored, and organic. Because if it's allowed to fester and just grow like crazy, I don't think any good can personally come from it. I want to know what all of you think on the subject. I'm encouraging all of you to, after this episode airs, drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Would heathenry having a massive blow up and a massive influx of people be good or a bad thing? I'd like to know in the comments. All right, everybody. That is all the time we have for today. I had a hell of a good time recording this episode, and I hope you had a good time listening. If you want to connect with us on a more personal level, you can connect with me at my cooking account on TikTok at Chef Einar Blackthorn, where I occasionally record these episodes live. Or you could find us over on Instagram at I am Heathen POD. That's I am Heathen Pod. We have reached 2,000 followers on the cooking TikTok account, and we are looking to launch a Patreon. That Patreon will go to fund this podcast and my cooking misadventures. With that said, my friends, that is all the time we have for today. And very much like we do in all of our other episodes, I propose a toast. Get your drink, and if you don't have it, really, you haven't been paying enough attention. Raise it up high and repeat after me. Hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the spirits, hail the ancestors, and most importantly, hail yourselves. This has been a Blackthorn production.